G'day, Poggers! Welcome to another episode of the PogState. And in fact, the very first one here for 2025. Happy New Year, and we're so glad to be back. This is absolutely incredible. And there's so much to go over, both for the LCK, League in general, lives, all that sort of stuff. Thankfully, I'm joined by the boys. Why are you giving me that look, Chronicler? I guess I'll introduce you first. How you doing?
Life just felt kind of weird. I know we're all have been living life supposedly between the end of the season and now, but I know it got
Life
me.
often feels weird, Chronicler. I could imagine that. How are you, Wolf?
I'm good.
Yeah.
You're not weird. No one else was.
Things are good. Yeah,
No one else
feeling
was-
pretty good, Chronicler. No, it's just
Is
him.
life not weird? It's just weird for Chronicler.
Well, it is now.
just fine. Yeah, no big changes. Everything's good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, bullshit.
What?
There's been a few big changes, I think.
Oh,
for you.
are we jumping right in? Are
Yeah, I
we
think
talking about
we
life
can-
updates?
we can-
Okay,
we can
I'll go
jump right in.
first. My wife and I had a baby.
기분 좋아요. 아주 좋아라. 딱딱딱딱.
For anyone who missed it,
Welcome to the universe and the world, Bryce.
Yeah, we do have a kid, and I haven't left the house very much. It's
Yeah.
been a lot of caretaking, a lot of fun times, though. It's very, very rewarding, fulfilling, and all that good stuff. But at the same time, I've been very tired most of the days, and I haven't done a lot of gaming as well. So it's good to be back. But for the last 2 months, this is basically what I've been doing.
Yeah, we haven't played
Yeah.
a board game in
Yeah,
like
I
4
haven't
months.
been able to visit many people or do many other activities.
You haven't existed. Basically.
Not really. Yeah.
Online a little bit.
Online, yeah.
A little bit. In
Some
small,
chatting,
in
you
small
know.
doses. Yeah, it's been fun.
I think we've talked about indie games like 3 times since
Yeah,
we've been
yeah.
in Babyland.
I did go to China for 2 weeks as well.
Yep.
For Crossfire, and then I came back.
And
And
then
it was
he's
right back, right back in the house, and yeah, no, but it's been fun.
Yep.
It's been good.
And Bryce has been sleeping well and stuff like that. in
Nowadays,
general.
yeah, no, he's doing well. The beginning was much more difficult. The newborn stage is like, oh my god, what the f- is going on? And now it's
But it
like,
kinda
oh, okay.
exponentially gets like easier, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you kind of like get into your groove. He gets into his groove. It's like, oh, okay, soft landing. It's
Yep.
good.
And then
That's
4
nice.
months hits and you're screwed again. All right, Wolf, how you doing?
I'm good. I had 2 business trips to Busan, which was really fun. It's nice to go to Busan in the
Nice.
winter. I visited the States for 3 weeks, so I was back for Christmas for the second time since I've moved to Korea. I've only been back for Christmas twice.
in 11 years or something?
13
12?
years, yeah.
13 years? Oh my-
Damn.
Jeez.
So, I've had a little bit more opportunity to go back these last few years, which has been nice. It was fun being in America and eating American food and re-experiencing American life and being in a car for like 4 hours every day because my parents live in the middle of nowhere. So when you want to go do things, it's like 4 hours total of driving, like to do everything and then get back to the house. But yeah, it was fun. I haven't played that many video games, to be honest, during this off season. Nothing's gripped me. I've been kind of taking a break from League, taking a break from like my long single player games. I'm always playing like Yakuza and stuff. So once the season ramps up, I'm really looking forward to that. Maybe I'll get back into gaming a little bit after work and stuff like that.
Nice. Meow?
Went on a skiing trip with you. Oh, that was fun. Although I didn't ski, but we did another small skiing trip together with Achilles, who most of you also know.
And who else?
Like a month back.
Anyone
sorry?
you're forgetting to mention that works on the LCK?
I was going to get
Sorry.
to that.
Sorry.
Degon's fired.
and
He
his
will not be with us for
lovely
2025.
And then some friends as well. And then we even had Yuno on, who also works in the LCK for the last trip. So that was really fun. Played a ton of cool indie games, as well as Metaphor, which was awesome.
Oh, I did beat that game.
Love
That's
that.
the one game I did.
Yeah,
beat.
that was I was about to say that that was really good. And I went to the Netherlands for a good while, which was also very enjoyable. And now, yesterday or like a week ago, I was like, man, I really need to play League. So yesterday, I played 10 hours of the new season. I'm back in the groove. In both a good and a bad way.
Just feeling absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Don't look at my OPGG.
It was great. As for me, I did manage to make it back to Australia. We had a little bit of a cat scare. So Dongchol, our white cat, was just not very well. He's got a whole bunch of organ failure going on. But for a few weeks there, it was really dicey. But now everything's kind of fine. It's really weird. He has to have treatment every day. So we've basically said that he's gone from like just a cat to a subscription model cat. Where you basically have to pay a subscription fee every day in order to keep him healthy. But he's very healthy, very happy, and that's the main thing. And then I went to Australia, which was strange because we go from the snow to very warm, and I was only there for a week, so it was only a little bit of having that summer experience and then straight back to the cold again. We went snowboarding or went to the snow for a little bit, and that was great. I'm covered in bruises.
We watched
so
a lot
good.
of GDQ as well. That was fun.
We definitely did do that. And that was also very, very
time.
good. And watched a lot of Magic. Don't know why, like,
Oh, yeah, on the
Achilles
first
loves
trip,
Penn and
it was
Teller so much,
legitimately
but he
7
really-
hours of
Oh, I
Magic
thought you meant
videos.
Magic the Gathering.
No,
it's
No,
worse
it was
than
the-
that.
Oh,
the-
just
Much
Magic
worse.
shows.
Just Magic, right?
That's very Achilles.
It's
though.
very Achilles.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
As far as games that I played, and here's another one that you forgot, Wolf. I played Dragon Quest 3,
I also did beat
which
that game,
was
you guys
that
did
game was a
Kesper
lot
Cup.
of fun. Yep, that was
we did
did Kesper
Kesper Cup.
Cup as well.
happened?
Yeah.
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 Well, so Kesper Cup feels a little bit like a dream because it
Good or
showed us
bad?
that the best team in the world is Bro.
Good treat.
They have
It's a
Hambak.
it's a good
Obviously,
dream.
they're the best team.
Yeah, and like hype. Like I don't know, that team looked like legitimately Bro looked good.
They're actually good now.
They look good.
The
And
meme
it's-
is
More on that later.
Yeah,
Not-
there's
the
going
meme's
to
not
be a
bad.
lot on that, but the Kesper Cup happened. It was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad that it was like so long as well. Like 8 days of Kesper Cup for the first time ever. They really like brought it back with a bang. And our studio was also really cute, and there was an amazing Japanese restaurant like just upstairs that Wolf and I would get every day.
It was very good.
It was super good. So yeah, that's about it. Life's been great though, but we're very happy to be back. I feel like, and Wolf, you and I think, get this the most, where we get incredibly anxious towards the end of the off season.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have lost like. I don't have a purpose anymore, and I need this in order to feel like a person. And so finally, the LCK is back to save our mental state, and everything is going to be brilliant. So let's get into it. And thankfully, we have a little video to get you ready for the LCK. This is to talk about the format, because every time I try to tell you about the format, I mess it up when we do it live on the PogState. So thankfully, we got a video here to get it done for you. Hello Summoners, welcome to the 2025 LCK League Format Explainer. The league is entering an exciting new chapter, packed with changes that will take the competition to the next level. Don't worry though, we'll be here to take you through everything you need to know.
So the first and biggest change is that the LCK is moving to a single season format. So no longer will we have spring and summer splits, but instead we'll have one continuous season. And at the end of the year, we'll have only a single team crowned season champion, which means that every single match that is played right from the beginning has a lot more impact, and every team will be fighting for that ultimate title.
Before the regular season kicks off, we'll have the LCK Cup. This preseason tournament not only sets the stage for the year, but also serves as the qualifier for the first international tournament scheduled for March. Here's how it all plays out.
The LCK Cup begins with what we call the group battle. So the 10 LCK teams are divided into two groups, and the top two teams from last season will each anchor a group, and then they take turns choosing who joins their group. Yes, the teams themselves will decide their competition. And once the groups are set, the teams will play against the other group in a single round-robin format.
That's awesome! When the dust settles, the results determine two key groups, the winners group and the losers group. The top three teams from the winners group advance straight to the playoffs, while everyone else heads to the play-ins. The play-ins will then determine the final seeds for the semi-double elimination playoffs. At the end of it all, one team will be crowned LCK Cup champion and earn a ticket to the first international tournament of the year.
Extravagant.
After the LCK Cup and the first international tournament, the regular season begins. The regular season is divided into two phases. The first phase consists of rounds 1 and 2, held before the MSI midseason tournament. During this phase, all 10 teams will play a double round-robin format over 9 weeks. At the end of these rounds, the top 6 teams advance to what we're calling the Road to MSI.
The Road to MSI is a special 5-round King of the Hill format. Teams battle it out to determine the 2 LCK representatives for MSI. It's fast, high stakes, and a perfect warm-up for the international stage.
Amazing!
After MSI, the regular season resumes with rounds 3, 4, and 5. Teams will be split into 2 groups based on their standing so far. We'll have the Legend group featuring the top tier teams and the Rise group where the remaining teams compete. Each group will play a triple round-robin best-of-3 format with every single match adding to the tension as we approach the playoffs.
Super cool!
Once the regular season ends, we enter the playoffs. But before the playoffs proper, there's one last hurdle, the play-ins. The 5th place team from the Legend group and the top 3 teams from the Rise group will compete for the final 2 playoff spots. This stage features 5 tense best-of-5 matches, so expect some incredible games.
The playoffs themselves adopt a full double elimination format starting right from round 1. That's a big change from previous years where losing early could mean instant elimination. So now every team gets a second chance, ensuring that the best truly rise to the top. The top 2 teams from the Legend group get a bye into round 2, while everyone else battles from round 1. At the end of it all, the LCK champion is crowned, and with it, they secure the top seed for Worlds.
Speaking of Worlds, there's another big change for 2025. Unfortunately, there will no longer be a regional qualifier, but instead your path to Worlds is determined entirely by the LCK playoffs. So where you finish in the playoffs determines your spot on the global stage. Simple, clear, and more competitive than ever.
So that's the new LCK format for 2025. From the high-stakes LCK Cup to an expanded regular season and a revamped playoff system, this year promises to deliver more action, more strategy, and more unforgettable moments than ever before. See you on the Rift. And so that's it. Thankfully, we didn't have to do that live, and so that's actually everything you need to know about the format. And now, gentlemen, it is time for us to have a brief discussion about the changes. And I think when you're talking about changes, you need to start with Wolf because he needs to eulogize and he
Are you
needs
okay?
he needs to tell us that it's all going to be okay to the best of his ability.
I mean, I want to be optimistic about the 2 groups. I think the biggest concern I had when the format was shown to us, which was a few weeks before you guys ended up getting to see it and it was being finalized still, having the Rise group and the Legend group. And what that means for teams not being able to compete against each other. You're not going to see any more Bro upsets against Gen G, or, for example. Well, Bro might actually be in the
Well, actually, you
Legends
will.
group, yeah.
You will probably
Yeah.
because that's towards the end of the season. That's when Bro's really got into the groove. They'll be top 5 easy.
But, I think that was my biggest concern. But I'm also hoping that teams will, especially in the Rise group, utilize the fact that they have weaker opponents and try to grow and try to be a little bit more experimental. Because I think one of the big problems we've had in the LCK over the last 5 years is that the weaker teams, the East Side teams, try to emulate what the strong teams do and just get bopped by them because they're worse. And you see that in best of 3s all the time. We see very little iteration from those teams. Instead of trying to play what they're good at, they just try to play what's meta. And that's kind of what the coaching staff has always tried to do. And I think that's kind of what the fans have always wanted as well, is to see teams try to play the best version of the meta instead of trying to do something unusual, because fans are really critical of unusual strategies. But I'm hoping that this new group situation allows for those weaker teams to try new stuff and try to really lean into their style, because the competition is more on their level towards the latter half of the season. So while I am a little bit concerned that it could end up being people only want to watch the Legends group and the Rise group is a little bit less interesting for some people, maybe it won't be, because it'll be closer games. Teams will improve. They'll try new stuff. That's my hope. But besides that, I'm overall really excited for it. I like the LCK Cup. We kind of keep that separate, where you have the Fearless Draft, which some people don't like. I'm not the biggest fan of bringing Fearless Draft straight into the league format, making that the main thing. But having it as its own tournament, especially with all these new crazy changes we have for the new season, just kind of having this crazy there are no rules Wild West tournament that's separate but still means something, and then having the regular format for the LCK is really cool to me. So I like that separation and that we get an extra tournament.
Overall, relatively positive. I like that. Who wants to go next?
Mal wants to go next.
I could see you exchanging glances.
I
was like, is this a battle?
No, I
that's
wanna
happening
hear
from
from
now?
Mal.
I'm trying to be polite. I'm trying to let Brendan
But I
talk.
know
No, I
he
just
really
wanted-
wants to
I
say.
just
Let's
wanted Mal to-
go. Mal,
For me, as Wolf is saying, one of the things that I think it's really easy to now accept, but that I really noticed with Worlds as well, is that eliminating games that 1 in 100, that might be the amazing bro upset, right? But like that's happened like 2 times over the
Bro
last
is the wrong
4
example.
years.
They upset all the time.
Okay, well, no, but that's okay. No, but that's
the
what
amazing
I mean.
B&K
bro,
upset.
like the biggest bro upsets were still like DK twice and Gen G once in like
KT once.
If you count Kesper Cup, then it's Ginger
but
twice.
yeah, but like what I'm talking about is that's what we remember. But what actually happens is we have about 1 million like Nongshim versus
Throwaway.
Gen G
Yeah,
games
yeah.
that are just 50 minutes game time in total, and everyone's just like, what's going on, right? And I think eliminating those games both increases the level of meaningful game, which is what you were saying as well, right? Like actually gives teams the opportunity to organically get better. And yeah, obviously it'll be, in an ideal world, you play against the best teams and you take something away from it. But we've seen that particularly when you get to a league that's as top heavy as the LCK, like the top 3 teams, which I'm sure will be the same this time around, just are so far ahead in every way that I don't think there's really any takeaway or anything to learn. And I think that this format, in theory, should make it better. Interestingly, I'm pretty positive about Fearless, but I actually would have, and I think that it makes more sense, as you're saying, to keep it isolated, because I'm glad that we don't have Fearless for the entire season. But combined with the early kind of chaos that you have with a new season, I would kind of like to have that still be normal, and then, but I don't know how you would work that out in terms of timing, because I feel like already so much room for innovation is being given by all the new things that have been added to the game, that adding Fearless on top of that makes it very chaotic. It can be cool, but that can also be a bit of a hat in the hat.
It's isolated to the first part of the season, then we don't have to worry about it. Valdez, what's your main takeaways?
I'm just happy that there's a lot of changes. I mean, if we can be honest, like League has been going on for a really long time. It's getting pretty old at this point.
Yeah, we should just cancel the LCK.
I think
It's like
time
kind
to
of
put
boring.
it to
Let's be
rest,
honest.
you
Like,
know?
another Gen G T1 rivalry. Whatever. Man.
Yeah, like how many times have we seen this, you know? So any big change in terms of league format, I think, is really good, because we've had, you know, spring, summer, and then it was winter in the past, like way in the back in the day. So just to have like spring, summer so many times in a row, it was like, okay, it's just kind of getting old. And
There's
like
been
spring,
26 of those seasons or something.
yeah,
like
and
that.
then it's like spring, and you know we kind of don't know what to expect, and teams are kind of just like, you know, not playing their best, and then they get much better in summer, and then MSI like didn't really matter, and like Riot was trying to make big changes there. I kind of like that how this year we have had a lot of different in-game changes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But those in-game changes aren't crazy, like a totally new item system or like something like that. There are some big changes, and I just don't feel like they're going to totally change the way the game is played. But we've made a huge change to the LCK during this year, so I feel like it kind of balances it out. I'm a big fan of Fearless. I know that competitively it has some question marks where it's like, you know, should it be allowed that Chovy doesn't get to play Azir 5 games in a row? Probably. That's more fun, I think, you know, but it is his best champ, and, you know, somebody who has that mastery, it is really cool to see that. But, you know, as well, it's not, you know, when we talk about Legend and Rise groups, we don't want you to get, you know, confused, because that's not the entire year. That's just towards the very end, and Fearless is only at the very beginning. So it's kind of like we're making all these different changes, but also we're testing them in different parts of the year. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I think we also had such an insane last year. When you look at play like LCK seasons, like spring season, going to 5 games between T1 and Gen G again.
We
And
had a
that
pretty good send-off
like
for the
that's
previous
what, yeah,
format.
like thinking back on it, right? Like both of those finals were
Hanwha won the
insane.
title. It
Yeah.
wasn't
Hanwha-
T1 or Gen G.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hanwha breaking what was it, the 5-peat? 4-peat? I'm
5-peat, I think.
5-peat,
They
yeah.
might make it to 3-peat this year.
Yeah, I think it's
Well, only
as good as a
2-peat,
send-off
because-
you're gonna
Isn't
get.
it? Oh, wait, yeah, because there's
there's-
only
yeah.
one.
That's what we're talking about, Max.
I got again. Oh.
Go back and watch the explainer video.
Yeah, I need to watch the explainer video.
Cue it.
Yeah, come on, Atlas, tell me about it. Okay. As for me, I think I'll probably echo all of your sentiments, but there's one thing that I really like about it, and that is in like the triple round robin towards the end of the year, as well as at the beginning when we split off into like the 2 groups, even at the very beginning of the first stand. what I think it does is it promotes scrimming between the lower teams and the upper teams, right? Just because you have these groups separated, so you don't want to give away your strategies to the teams that you're going to be playing against. And so that sort of incentivizes you to go and play against Nongshim or these other teams that are lower down. And if our higher seeded teams in the LCK are actually actively scrimming against a lot of these lower tier teams, it can help bring them up at the same time. And I don't necessarily feel like that's the greatest for, making the Hanwhas, the Genjis, these teams that are looking a whole lot better than the rest, better. But what it does is it helps make our league a lot more competitive and gives these teams an opportunity to have that sort of hyperbolic time chamber, which may then make the playoffs more interesting if one of these like Rise teams does make a breakout. Like I can see a lot of the narratives being really, really fun when it comes to like what happens towards the very end of the year.
And the only thing I will 100% miss is the regional qualifier, because some of the best story, like the
true.
Right, the DRX storyline 2022 obviously comes to mind, but there was also 2021 Hanwha.
Yeah, the Hanwha one,
which was incredible. But
even this year, right? Like with T1 being like
T1.
one game away from making it to Worlds,
KT
or not?
almost making it. Yeah. But we do get a lot of similar, like cool small mini tournaments back for that, right? Like the play-ins for the playoffs, and then also Road to MSI.
Yeah,
So
I think there's a lot of like
those are really
mini like Worlds qualifiers that are thrown in throughout the year. Like
The
that's
playoffs are so like the depth of the playoffs is so high with the plans and everything that you do end up having like this insane thing that's almost like its own mini tournament itself. That makes it feel less bad that you're losing that regional qualifier, because you do have so many chances to earn your way to Worlds throughout the latter half of the year.
Yeah.
It's not in that one crazy moment. It's like, oh God, T1 could have not gone to Worlds at all, and who knows what would have happened. Which is hype, but it's also like not necessarily setting the best teams who deserved it the most for the whole year anyways. So this is probably better, just for competitive integrity and stuff like that. I'll definitely miss on things we'll miss the fact that like when we changed format in 2015 to the round robin like league system, we have a logo change back then and all that. Moving to this, I don't think we're changing the logo unless it's happening and no one told me.
I don't think so.
But I wish there was some more ways to separate the like records and history, because winning an LCK now is arguably much more difficult, much more meaningful than winning just a spring split or a summer split, because you're winning the year-long tournament. I'm sure the LCK has some plans for how they're going to differentiate that stuff.
I want the Hall of Fame to actually immortalize the records that are going to die, the records that are going to be eliminated, right? Like the perfect split and like these sorts of things. Like have like a top 3 on the wall in the LCK Hall of Fame that we have just around the corner that will allow those records to stay alive. Because I think that like we've been talking about these things for so long, like Genji finally being able to take that game score record away from SKT from 2015, like these sorts of things I think are like important to kind of keep alive. We
have a really good stats and records keeping team. And we have a really cool internal system where a lot of those stats are kept from all the way back since like the World Champions days.
We've had Spenu Sonic Boom like on our broadcast more times than I ever expected.
I think with the people we have in charge, I think that of these types of things, I think that there will be a really smooth transition. I think they'll be able to contextualize a lot of our stats because they have in the past quite well. So I'm not worried about that necessarily, but I do want newer fans to be able to recognize that this is not how it's always been. It'll be super easy to know that this year, but maybe in like 2027, people will forget that we used to have something else if they didn't watch the whole way through.
Oh, it'll go quickly. It always does.
Yep, I would agree. All right, so it's now time to talk about Khan hiding in the attic, I guess.
That's the
Attic
introduction.
Khan.
Attic Khan, dude.
Yeah, the new boss.
The new boss, Attic Khan.
I really...
He like comes down and he's really grumpy because he hasn't had any vitamin D.
Sometimes he comes out of the basement though.
Hey, true. I mean, Basement Khan's the same one. He just has a different name.
I kind of expect you to make Star Trek jokes, because the
I didn't watch Star Trek.
Because it's
I was never a Star Trek guy. I'm sorry.
No, Khan, Spock yelling.
Shia Khan?
Yeah, the player Khan from...
Is that from the Jungle
Metal
Book?
Gear?
Shia Khan's like the tiger from the Jungle Book, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Moving on.
top.
So gameplay.
Let's have a chat about what has changed on the Rift. And I like to think about it as the battle between Darius and Trundle in the cinematic you guys have all obviously watched. Darius does come out ahead, but I have a feeling the Freljord are what ultimately won because snowballing is the game.
It was a charged scene between the two.
It
Very
really was.
visceral.
And, you know, it's all about Noxus and everything is focused on Noxus and battle and all that sort of stuff. But the snowball really did come out on top.
Yeah, it's a really cool marriage between theme and how the game feels. Although it's again, we've had, and I want to really reiterate this, we've had basically 1 day of actual solo queue. And people have been able to play on the patch before, right? Obviously.
I like how the first game that I watched, I loaded up Midbeast's stream. And I was like, oh, looking forward to seeing all these, like, the new boots and stuff like that. He's playing Cassiopeia, very first game. I'm like, oh, damn it,
Hey,
Drew.
her passive,
her passive does
She does
feel
get
well.
a little... Yeah, but
She
I want to
gets
see the
more.
picture of the cool new boots, okay?
Yeah, there is a lot, but at least first impressions is that snowballing is, even though some gold has been taken away, is kind of insane. With the new Feat of Strength. I think if you don't know Feat of Strength, now you basically have 3 mini objectives that you want to get early in the game, and they give you access once you hit 2 legendary items to permanently upgrade the boots. And one is first turret, which, you know, that's hard to get. Even by you have a 600 team, some teams don't seem to be able to actually get that done.
Yeah.
And then 3 objectives, epic, so either 3 dragons or a full spawn of grubs or herald, and first blood.
Yeah, the fact that First Blood exists there, I think, is what most people have a problem with.
In terms of equivalency, there's a...
There are different levels of feats, you know?
I'm just,
Yeah.
do you know
For
what
Atlas,
makes...
for example, showing up to work on
actually-
time could be considered a feat.
Hey, I did that today! Oh my god!
But they're actually weighed the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Which
climbing Mount
I
Everest, showing up to work on time. Like, depending on the person, you know?
so
I know,
traffic gets
climbing Mount
crazy,
Everest
okay?
is so
It
easy.
does, it does. So I think that it's a bit too much of a gap, you know. I especially for solo queue. If you're playing solo queue
Oh, yeah.
and you lose first blood, your team immediately
They're done.
gives up.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, guys, there's 3 feats. Like, there is a way to come back. We
No.
could take first turret and maybe we like fight over the grubs, right?
No.
That's not going to happen in solo queue. But
Especially not
I
if
hope-
you're the one that entered First Blood as well, which
I-
is what I'm the most worried about,
Yeah.
you know?
Then it's
You're a
just
top laner, so you
delete-
should be.
delete your account,
It's like
so-
solo losing the game has never been this easy.
It is a great way to end. Yeah, it's just that
Yeah.
extra level
God.
until your teammates. But in pro, I would hope. Now, I have not huge hope for the LCK because sometimes we get stuck in our metas. But I hope that it's like, okay, we can play for this, right? Like, we can try to dive bot and get first blood. Like, we can actually try to make plays. Like, think about Peanut, you know, trying to set up first bloods, or some of these other big junglers like Owner doing it as well. I feel like this can be fun. In terms of like actual game balance, I'm not so sure, but I'm excited to see it in pro because I feel like there are still ways to play around it. First turret, I was a little bit worried when I heard about that because I'm like, what about lane swaps and what about like, you know?
They removed some of the defenses of mid and top as well. So
Yeah,
you can kill those
it's
faster.
like, you know, what if we just play only to get first turret and only to get those grubs, and we don't care what else happens because then we get feats of strength, and you know, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of strategies do spawn from it. But solo queue's ruined,
Yeah, solo queues.
so don't play.
Solo queues bad.
Yeah,
I do like a turret.
You heard it here first. Don't play League of Legends from Valdez, the guy that also said that everything was dead. Like,
I have a
earlier on
feeling
in
that
the
this
day.
it up.
should probably be changed. Like maybe even on the first patch that comes out after
Yeah.
this.
It might be
Yeah.
like to multiple kills.
but how many
Yeah,
weeks?
so like 3 kills, first team to 3 kills, just same as the objective thing. Or it could be changed to like
First
I
team
don't
to
know,
get
first
3
inner turret.
consecutive kills, I think would be okay
You
as
guys
well.
remember last year though? We were on what was it? 13.1 was just this awful patch, and we were on it for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Might happen. yeah.
Like, just
Well, like, this is
happen
the thing,
again,
there's, like,
where
what,
we have
8
2 weeks
patches
of
or
like
something?
you know.
Well, it's
First
interesting because in a theory you could just start picking level 2 junglers and just cheese
Yeah.
red buff cheese gank every single time. But like diving has also been made harder. Turrets actually do
Yeah,
a good amount of
turrets
extra.
kind of obliterate.
They have been Noxused up as well.
yeah.
So I'm really interested to see to what strategies leads. I do like the ebb and flow feel of the feats of strength, though. Like, I don't think the system right now is very fine tuned, but I could see that as we go in because it really incentivizes and it creates some really interesting traits that you can take that I think previously were just kind of disregarded or
Yeah, I
people
like
weren't
it as a
looking towards.
theory. I just don't like First Blood existing as one of them.
That's,
Yeah.
I
That's
think,
the
also
only
the
thing.
prevailing
Yeah.
sentiment.
So I mean, also keep in mind what the feats of strength are. Leads to being able to get the upgraded boots basically instantly, and then you have to have 2 legendary items to buy the tier 3 boots. It's kind of funny. It's called feats of strength, and then it gives you like the thing to put on
Gives
your
you feet.
Put them on your feet.
Good one on that one, right? Feats.
he really is taking well to being a dad. Like,
Yeah,
I
this is
say that
really
all the
like
time.
instantly unlocked. Oh my god.
But I think obviously the tier 3 boots are the real like the tier 2 upgrade or whatever you want to call
the
it.
real.
That's
battle.
whatever. But the tier 3 boot is I believe it's 750 gold you have to
Yeah, it is.
spend. And you have to have 2 legendary items, so it's not like you get this and then you instantly win the game. But because you're already winning the game, probably because you did get 2 of those 3 things, you have a nice lead, so you probably can afford to get those boots a little bit faster. And then the upgrades for like Sork shoes, for example, or some of the movement speed that stacks kind of multiplicatively on like Swifties is actually crazy if you
No, it's
have
insane.
like Cloud Soul as well, and you're just
Yeah, yeah,
running
yeah.
around the Rift. So that can create a very oppressive game state, especially in a very oppressive league like the LCK. I
Yeah.
think it's going to affect our league more than other leagues because we are already a pretty slow pace. But then once you get like even a small edge in the LCK, it just steamrolls the other team. Now with these changes, especially a team like Gen G, Hanwha Life, T1. They might just absolutely gigagap you. We might have games ending at like 20 to 22 minutes at times if these changes, stay the way they are after the first patch.
Well,
or
So
so.
Because-
the Sork pen boots upgrade is so strong, where you get the flat pen and the percentage pen. It's so insane.
Percentage pen is
think about
insane.
That
Think
is
about where you have a
disgusting.
winning mid lane, which happens pretty often, and he's like, think about Showmaker, right? He wins his lane, and then he's like going around picking up all the petals, and then he's like got his tier 3 boots because his team is winning. Like, you will not win against his LeBlanc. He will solo carry
Yeah,
the game.
if
So
he
like,
has, and it's like
there's
you
no
have to
hope.
have 2 legendary items. So like a champion like LeBlanc is like a perfect example of completely broken. If you get that, like you
Yeah.
get 2
The
items
spike?
and boots, like
Yeah.
that item spike is revolting.
if you can afford a Majais, you can afford the tier 3 boots.
even playing yesterday, like both the Mercs and the Steel Caps, it's a 240 health shield.
Yeah, the shield is insane.
Like
it's
the shield
massive.
feels. You can do some truly
12-second
disgusting
cooldown
and-
on the plated steel caps. I saw that. I was
Yeah.
like, what is
Yeah.
going on? 12 seconds?
because tanks are really struggling, so I think they needed the
Yeah,
help.
yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad
Hey,
you
but they
mentioned
don't
it.
get anything from the pedals.
Well, that's so the paddles
Poor
is
tanks.
Well, of course because they still get level leads, and the paddles I think are another example of like that has very obviously been added to further solidify. Like once you get map control, if the enemy team doesn't get to walk into a river or he doesn't get to walk into their own jungle, you will get even further ahead.
Yeah,
and like
this
you're
is like a
already
quick-
winning.
But now, if you're behind, they give you more XP.
Woohoo!
I will
So
say,
surely, like, if you can sneak some pedals, you can catch up, right? It's a
Yeah.
catch-up mechanic, right?
Yeah.
I like the element. I've played maybe like 15 games. I just grinded all day yesterday. I played like all day, all night. Yeah. I do like the element of like picking up the pedals
It's
while you're in the
satisfying.
game. It's very satisfying. And if you're like walking back to lane or you're trying to clear wards or whatever, you see one, it's kind of like nice. I'm helping. Like, and you just hit that and you keep going. It's very satisfying. Like I think they kind of nailed that because you're like I'm getting this. I'm getting some XP. I'm getting some bonuses for my team. This is really important, and it feels really nice and satisfying to pick them up. You're heading back. You're going to push a turret, for example. The enemy team's all grouped top side. You're like, I don't have teleport. I'm going to push that bottom turret and take out that tier 1. And then there's some pedals around. So you're like, I'm also adding this element of helping out my team. I think in terms of what it means for just like low level solo queue, it's pretty fun. Like I think it's a good change. Props to them for like how it feels. Maybe there's some tweaking that needs to be done in terms of the numbers and stuff. But I do agree that in terms of oppressive pro games and high level solo queue, it's just you add that up with the feats of strength and
And-
some of the bonuses for Otacon, and you're like, well, I
And-
don't know if this is really this is a bit
Yeah.
much.
And the teleport changes because I do really like. So if you don't know, new teleport is really funny. I can't wait to see what Jonas Strong's gonna do with it because I guarantee you he's gonna do like the follow.
we're gonna get a lot of follows.
Because you turn into a ball and then you just dash slowly, leisurely. You kind of like.
Chovy said, early teleport is so slow to the point where I can take a nap.
But
He said that.
so the problem with a lot of these things is that in theory, what it does is it rewards good laning, so that then when you build a lead over your opponent, you actually get to push it, right? Like they don't just get a free back, and then with all the sustain in the game, they get to sustain back up, and your laning leads don't matter that much. But what we've seen in the LCK is that what happens in practice is that once someone gets a laning lead, no risks are taken. And it just, the team that isn't willing to fight over anything just sits there and goes, we'll wait for them to make a mistake. Still waiting. And we're waiting to this day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But maybe it'll lead to more action, you know?
Hoping so. The thing that I'm
supposedly
the thing that I really like,
maybe
the thing that I really like about the new teleport is thinking about that in theory in a team fight. Because then you get the little ghosties to come in, like, and they're like, "Shoom, I'm coming in to help." Like, it actually makes like teleport so much more noticeable in a team fight, which I actually really enjoy.
I like this indicator on the ground as well that like lets you know when it's going to finish and stuff like that.
It's well done. Yeah, it's really cute. I'm also, because I was watching back like 2020 Worlds, and it's really easy to forget. Like, people you see Showmaker teleporting to a top wave like level 4 to murder someone. I mean, in theory, if someone is really overextended, you can now do that again with wards, because you can no longer just teleport to turrets. But in practice, because it's so slow, the fact that is added back when someone really messes up, I think is fun. I don't think that's going to matter for pro play, but just from
I think it'll matter
from a cross map perspective. It'll be fun, right, when that happens again, without feeling like it did back in the past, where you just get the snowball
everywhere. You can do
everywhere.
a lot more creative stuff as a top laner if you're not under pressure during a 2v2 in the bottom lane. If someone's trying to set up a dive, you can actually not only in the past you would just teleport to the turret, and that would, you know, I mean, you would very rarely do this by the way, but you could
counter dives,
and then dives. People would see the teleport and be like, "Cool, got his teleport," and walk away. Now you can teleport to a ward that's behind them, and they're like, "Oh, now do we commit to the dive with the ramp turret damage?" And it's going to be even tougher because he's coming and he's behind us. Like, what do we do? And then there's a lot more trade-offs there. I think when we get to pro play, that will actually be a factor. I don't think it's going to be every game or even most games, but I do think the fact that you can teleport to wards again will just add a lot more creativity, and it'll make people have to think twice again about looking for dives, having to sweep those wards in the bottom of the map that otherwise didn't really matter once they added Unleashed and stuff like that.
I actually really think dives are going to be so much harder just with everything that's going against it. So that's going to be a very rough time.
Yeah, I love it. I love this quote.
What did Owner say? Owner said, with Voracious Atacon's death mitigation effect, it's worth 5-man diving and dying for the enemy ADC's flash. So he's saying once you get that basically GA
if
effect,
you get Atacon, then
you can just 5-man dive and all die as long as you get enemy ADC's flash, because you just get free GA.
Yeah.
And so there might be some diving in that effect.
if you 4-man dive, though, that enemy AD carry is getting 400 gold if they manage to tag everyone. You know?
Yeah, but then they want to flash, and then you can win the fight, and you get the feats of strength.
You're getting 40 gold every time you get killed.
They also get 4 blood petals.
So, yeah. I was curious what you guys thought about here in the LCK. You know, we've had not that much action over the years.
We're never seeing angry
How
Atacon.
many times are we going to see Ruinous Atacon in this LCK Cup?
I don't know.
What do you think? Voracious Atacon will happen most of the time, I think.
I don't know the threshold that well yet, even though I played a lot of games.
It's hard to... It's also solo queue is...
Yeah, solo queue is tough to know, but like it's kills, but also damage done. So if you have like a top lane matchup where nobody's dying, but you're like hitting each other a lot and constantly trading for damage, that number stacks up a lot. And maybe that's enough to push it over the threshold. It's hard to know, because I also had the same sort of feeling when I was looking at this. I was like, well, that's not going to happen in LCK. Where a lot of the time we're like, latest first blood at 28 minutes. Broken the record the next day, 29 minutes. We do have a lot of slow games and a lot of macro games. But I think with some of these changes in the feats of strength, I mean, Riot's intention here is these games won't be as passive. There will be a lot of fighting. There will be a lot of incentive to try to force down that turret, force down that first blood. That leads to then, potentially that Voracious, the Ruinous Atacon coming out. So it's hard to say, like, early on whether that'll happen.
And then if you have the GA effect from the more passive Atacon, maybe that forces you to go for crazy plays and dives so that you can, utilize that, because it only lasts like a minute and a half, right?
Yeah,
the GA. So you're like, okay, we're gonna go like balls to the wall, like we're going in, we're ahead already because we got this objective. Maybe we can make a play. But then maybe
It's-
you give up Baron. I think it's going to be a very interesting.
Well, you
new
don't give
tempo.
up Baron, right? Because the Baron's
No,
now
well,
been pushed
It,
back
it
to
spawns
25
later,
minutes.
but like if you maybe if
can
you
never,
time it,
I don't think you can ever Arakan into Baron.
maybe the timing. No, I was saying like maybe you go like too far with the GA that you then like die and give up like
Position,
pressure
yeah.
and tempo, and then like the other team.
Oh,
Yeah,
takes
so
it.
right.
there's
Okay.
some subtle things.
The
like, for
flow
sure.
on
I feel like
effect
the
may
tempo of the
let you lose it,
game
yeah.
can very much change in a big way this year with a lot of these changes.
Yeah, it's also it's really hard to take Arakan because of the way he shreds you. So like if it's contested, you actually need to be careful. And I really like geometry changes on the rifts because I feel like they often create really interesting scenarios. And again, I think it can also lead to a scenario where you can basically like get a dragon, immediately get Arakan if they spawn on the same side of the map, and you're just like sitting there watching the enemy
They
team.
will, because do people ever fight in the top side of the map in the LCK? It's
Well,
always
so-
bottom lane.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm wondering about. And add to that, in theory, there should be a lot of fighting. Like the adding of objectives, in theory, and in solo queue does actually promote action, right? You want to fight for grubs, you want to fight for feats of strength, you want to fight for the pedals, want to fight for Otacon, but then I'm just a little worried that in the LCK we'll take that and go, no, there's actually opportunity to trade now.
Yeah.
On every side of the map. So we'll
Just
see how that
never
works out.
see-
I also think the new rune, there's a few cool new runes, Deep Ward and Sixth Sense. Those are fun. I don't know how
Sixth
good
Sense
they'll
I'm
be.
worried about just seeing all the extra wards and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, Sixth Sense gives you the Umbral passive, but you don't actually see the ward until, what was it, level 11?
11.
And then,
But it like pings them.
yeah, so you do know where they are.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. Allows junglers to path around it. I'm sure Peanut gonna do that at some point, like flash over a wall. Just
Oh yeah.
It's
make that
oppressive.
work.
It's
Yeah.
oppressive. Like the fact that you can have all that is just like one of the things we talk about all the time. Chemtech Soul isn't that great, but the Chemtech Rift allows you to really just clear vision so easily. You pair all these things together, it'd be that snowball effect is again just going to be even stronger.
Yeah.
And then
likely that everyone
Deep
takes that as
Ward
well.
gives you, even at level 1, is 30 seconds extra time on a stealth ward, which it goes up to 2 minutes, which is kind of insane, and an extra health. And I don't know how good it'll be in pro play, because obviously Vision Game there works very differently, but it was actually playing into it was really annoying, because that forfeit actually does make a big difference for how many wards you get to clear.
Unless
So
you're
I'm-
Shyvana.
True. Relevant champion.
Yeah.
Surely.
Dear.
Renekton? Renekton probably going to be okay. All right. I think that we have exhausted the amount of time that we have in order to talk about this. We will definitely go into more depth now that we've had a little bit, when we've had a little bit more time to see how the
Yeah.
game's sort of been going, as we're making our outrageous, very early predictions about the LCK, which will be coming up in the next episode. We need to now talk about the LCK rosters, and this is the
boy.
meat and potatoes. This is what you came here for, and this is what I have wanted to talk about the entire time, because Wolf and I cast the Kesper Cup, as we mentioned earlier on, and I am very happy to say that Bro are the winningest team heading into the LCK, and I think that they might be able to go all the way. This might be the year of the Bros.
Go to playoffs. Yeah, I agree.
Let me just remind everyone, and this is starting at the very bottom of the list of teams that we've got here on our sheet, but this is the roster. It is Morgan, Humbuck, Closer, Hype, with Bull there as well. Hype is, of course, on loan from KT, so still does belong to KT at this point in time, and Polo is still there as well. So they kept the best players from Bro in the previous year, and they've added Closer, who I think was the shining star of B&K. Sorry, B&K, probably not going to look so good this year. And then added Humbuck, who is the best jungler in Challenger by like
I
a
love
country
Humbuck.
mile, like a giga country
I'm
mile.
a huge fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like him and Lucid always went toe to toe, and then the
And
other
then Lucid
Apex
got up.
Predator
Yeah,
left,
yeah.
and it was like
Yeah.
Hambach was just
I guess I'll win everything. And Hype is amazing as well. So this team, and Wolf and I saw it in Kesper Cup, they are just really good.
Yeah, even Closer seems like a little bit like he's been unleashed. He's been unchained.
revitalized.
Yeah.
And he still has his moments where, like, sometimes his macro sense isn't as good as it needs to be, but mechanically very strong. And we have a very aggressive jungler like Humbuck. It kind of reminds me of some of the best days of Kroko, but, like, a little bit more measured, where he's just super aggressive all the time, kind of like Lucid was in Challengers when he was at the top of his game. It does unlock Closer's playstyle because a very aggressive player wants to skirmish, wants to fight, wants to use his mechanics in the early mid-game very well. The team looked really good, and Hype is an incredible talent. We've been watching him through Challengers for a really long time. I think KT kind of had a missed opportunity not locking him into their normal roster.
With the player that he'd been playing with for a really long time.
Yeah, it's very strange. But either way, maybe they made a great deal. Maybe Bro paid a lot. I don't know how that deal went on. It's not public, obviously, but it's a strong roster. I do think that it has some limitations. I think that I don't want to get too hyped for them yet because in Kespa Cup also, Bro was a team that had a lot more to win, like had a lot more to prove. It meant a lot more
And
to
they also
them.
had their full roster.
Yes.
I have to actually say the caveat, which is there's a few asterisks when it comes to the players that
Max,
were brought
let
for a lot of these
Let
teams.
someone else do that.
All
That's
right,
not your...
maybe someone in the YouTube comments can say, well, actually, and you can have that. Just make sure you start it with well, actually. If you can add italics, that would make it even better. But yeah, I think Bro actually, like, the team
beat
still
DK.
looks good. Yeah, they
and I actually, I'm 100% with you, and I'm known bro anti, as we all know, over the
change
last
this
couple of
year, though,
years.
you
No,
know?
because
I mean, the only thing left is Morgan, right? And I guess Polo as well.
Well,
But Polo came in as a pretty
Polo was
positive.
good, yeah.
He was a positive change.
I wasn't
when he
even
was
a
there
bro
before.
anti in 2021 when they were actually a pretty good team, right? And I think that they're going to make playoffs. Like this team, I know the playoff structure has changed, but like they could be top 5.
Yeah, they could
very
make the
realistically,
legend group,
which is so cool. And I think that these are exactly the type of signups that you want to see. Where like Hambach not being signed, as you point out, makes sense. Cuz staying at KT, like it's cuz that no one can really fault them for that. But the fact that Hype gets to play for them, they'll be nerfed against KT, which I think might actually be relevant because I think they are contesting for 5th place with KT. Looking at the teams as they are now, because KT is same top side, so Perfect, cuz BDD. Perfect obviously had a bit of a rough end to the year, but we do know he's a grinder. I do still think that giving him another opportunity is fine. And then Dokdam and Wei, and I was a really big fan of Dokdam, but I feel like he's kind of stagnated. And then Wei is super exciting, so maybe he can breathe some new life into
think
that.
Doc
Hype
Dom
and Wei
was
were
just-
always so good in challengers. That
I
duo was
just
the
would
best.
have loved
Yeah.
to see them together.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing to think about too with Bro. Like Bull, obviously we hyped him up a lot when he came into the scene, and then he kind of fell
didn't.
off.
Well, he was playing well for like
He
a couple
played
of
well,
weeks.
but he was
and
he's the type of guy who plays the lane bully, wins lane. But if you put him on a scaling 80 carry, you put him on Ezreal or something, you're like, ooh, this isn't great. It's kind of reminiscent. Obviously, this is a much higher level thing to like what T1 was doing when they had Guma, who's known to be like lane pusher, lane bully guy. He's also good at scaling, but then they had Teddy on the other side. We're like, oh, who are you going to play?
Yeah.
You got the late game fountain laser, but you've also got the lane bully kind of guy. Hype is the late game type of guy. Not to say he can't aggressively win lane, but when they want to play something different, it's cool that they have Bull on their roster. I don't think it's necessary that they'll only play him when they're playing against KT. We'll see what happens, obviously, because Hype is a much better player and much more well-rounded. But there are some situations where I could see if Bro wants to utilize Bull in this specific niche role, where they could play him on some specific drafts they want to run, especially in Fearless and LCK Cup. So I just think this team is really fun. It's really flexible, and it's finally a team making some big drastic changes, but also not breaking their budget either, which is what we've seen a lot of teams shy away from recently on the East side. Is just like, I'll just put the Challengers roster in and go, we give up this year.
And then
There's
Lunch.
been I really thought Bro was going to kind of phone it in this year, especially with what we've sort of been hearing behind the scenes of them not exactly like finding the most options as far as what they can do moving further forward. I think this is a phenomenal outcome for a team that didn't have a whole lot of hope. And I just really hope that they can use the Kespa Cup win as sort of fuel to get them into good standing at the beginning of the year. Because I think, like, Bro are so easy to like. Like, they could get to a point where this is the team that's, like, joining that top 5 as far as teams that are able to, like, sell merch and, create a big fandom.
They could be a TSM meme, team type
Exactly,
thing,
yeah. And I think they already are, but it's only going to get better.
And now they're good.
If they're good, it does really help. Because the best part about the Bro meme is that it molds into whatever it needs to be. So it's not like they have to be bad for the memes to work.
No, exactly. All right, let's move on. We've talked about Bro. KT, we spoke about a little bit. I think the Dokdam edition, instead of just calling up Wei, I was really upset about. Sorry, Hype. Because Wei's already there. I think we were all upset about when it got announced.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Doesn't
it's
make
kind of
any
like
sense.
it won't heal.
Nobody's happy about that.
Yeah, no.
I like
took the
Duck Dom. I
Band-Aid
think
off
he's
and I was
good.
like,
I think
oh,
Duck Dom is good.
I think he's a really
fine.
nice guy.
Yeah.
And I think Hype is a better player.
Do you guys
And he was
remember
just
Duck
right
Dom
there.
came in with a broken arm with a cast on? And
Yeah.
carried
No,
his
Duck
team
Dom,
across
I'm
the
happy.
finish
Yeah,
line?
that was actually
Do you
sick.
guys remember Duck Dom's Aphelios? Do you guys
Happy
do you guys
he was
remember how
back
he
in
did the
LCK.
LPL?
I'm ready. Yeah.
No, I don't. Well, no, No, I don't.
Hey, FPX had that period where they were really good. I mean, it was mostly Milky Way, but it's a good challenger enjoy year as well. So we have
And now it's stuck dumb way
what?
instead of Milky Way.
Oh god. Because we have Shiu also
Damn, Dad.
coming in. We have
Yeah.
Diablo, who unfortunately, unless he has a like
Oh,
Pays level
we
debut.
don't. So
We're
we
not
only
there
have
yet.
a certain amount of time to talk
Ah,
about
okay,
this.
okay,
We
okay, that's
will be omitting B&K from this discussion.
Can we
I'm sorry,
also?
like, they just don't exist. Let's just not talk about it. It'll
No, but
make everyone
Di-
sad. We
agree.
don't need to do
Diablo,
this.
Diablo coming in is cool. Okay, that's a good player.
Is it what?
Diablo is. I'm not talking about the team. He is
mean-
good individually.
I mean,
I mean,
Look,
Diablo's
I'll say
good.
the words. He was a really young player, right? He's just become eligible to play in the LCK. We casted him 2022 when we
Yeah.
were doing challengers back then. A lot, and he was definitely a rough around the edges type player, but he definitely had a lot of potential.
he had a pretty decent Lucian that one game.
Yeah, his Lucian was good.
I remember.
He's played some decent Varus games. Like I think he will struggle. I think he's not like on the GU like Bull kind of like, ooh, this is a prospect right now level, or even a Leaper. You remember Leaper?
Yeah, I remember
He's
Leaper,
not
yeah.
on this list, but there was like a little moment where we're like, wow, this guy's quite talented. I think Diablo's going to struggle. He's playing with Kellen, who hasn't looked great as of late, and then the
Yeah.
rest of that
And
team
he's
is
not much of a leader of lane.
It's
as
just
well.
it's Diablo's like for me like at best 6 out of 10 prospect for challengers, and I don't even say that in a mean way, but I think he's not really going to shine on this roster. So I don't think people are going to be high on this guy after LCK Cup. Let's just say because
No,
the
that's fair.
circumstances around it are not great. But if he can shine on this team somehow, if he actually does break that barrier as an 80 carry on this roster, I'm like, well, he's going to places.
to the moon.
No, I'm hoping for a Teddy or Geo-esque arc. I'm not expecting him to be able to
And
do
just to let
anything
you
for
guys know,
B&K.
the rest of the team is Clear, Raptor, Vikla, back in again, woohoo! And then Diablo and Kellen, and it's just kind of looking like 10th. So let's.
I have a different team for 10th.
Oh, so
actually.
who's the different team for 10th? So there's a couple of options, I guess.
DRX.
Yeah, DRX.
It's DRX.
No, but DRX is so interesting. The
So
geriatric team, I'm so into
So
this.
DRX do have a lot. Of,
so into
DRX
this.
actually has a lot of legacy, right? We have we
yeah.
have the
Oh, that's a
faker
good
of
way to put it.
That
hearts.
is
Yeah.
a better way to put it than the
We have the
geriatric
faker of
team.
hearts. We have Juon, who's back at it again.
World
Yes,
champion.
Yeah,
yes,
man.
in what
Yeah.
year? What year was that, Wolf? Like, how many years ago was that? Was that
it was several- it was
2017?
several years.
World champion Juon, essential to their run in 2022. Who is, I assume, going to play sub again.
Hey, Yukal, the savior of 2018 KT.
Yeah, Yukal,
Yukal.
who obviously was in TT for a good amount of time. Teddy.
Teddy, who won like most hype play at the LCK Award.
He
Like,
did,
Kaisa play.
and also the most funny moments that he had as well. Like
He did
that was
nail
actually
that.
super adorable.
And then Ondil, not Pleta.
Not Pleta.
Well,
not
Pleta's still
Pleta.
on the
I'm so
roster,
glad
but-
that Onx is not here today because he would just get up and leave. He was so angry when he heard about that, actually.
I think Undil is actually pretty good though.
I think
No,
he's
I
pretty
think
good.
Ondil's
And I
solid.
also like. I think it's going to be better for Ondil now that CV Max is in a different country.
Yes,
Yeah.
it will help.
I think
Absolutely.
that'll be way.
Can we
better
not
for
talk
Ondil.
about where CV Max is with who? Because it makes me very sad.
Yeah,
Pace.
we don't need to talk about that. Thanks for others. It's really cool.
Yeah, I do think that Ondil is a very skilled player. I think he had a lot of off the rift issues. As long as he can get through those, and Teddy's a great, actually a great leader and a great player. I don't know how great he is nowadays, but
Who is the leader on this team?
Maybe
though,
they can make it
realistically?
happen.
That's the problem
It's
I have with
Rich.
this team.
I think
exactly
it's,
right.
I think it's Teddy.
Rich.
Isn't it Sponge?
I think it's
Oh,
Teddy.
it's probably
I don't
Sponge.
know, guys.
Give the reins
No,
to
it's-
the young man.
Well, but like that's I feel like that was the
Can it
role
be
he
Yukal?
tried to fulfill
I feel
last
like
split.
Yukal is still a
Yukal should
rookie in
be.
my mind, but he's absolutely not. Like he's
Yeah.
been around forever now.
7 years, Val.
yeah.
Maybe Yukal. I mean, it is the LCK. Like everybody's a rookie in this
Well,
league.
when you, go.
So DRX.
Maybe
Getting
it's Yukal?
exasperated.
Yeah. So DRX and BFK, I think we can safely, or BFX, I think we can all safely say our expectations are tempered.
Relatively low.
Yeah.
And what about did not finish? We're starting really at the bottom.
It's okay.
I mean,
Will.
like, I don't know, guys.
Finish.
I
You
look
mean
at
DN
there's a lot of these
freeze?
teams here. I was thinking so positively when I saw some of these rosters. Like, where you have Berserker coming back, right?
That's
and
hype.
Pioshik's on DMF, and Doodoo
Yeah.
is pretty good. Life was always solid, And Teddy and Yukal and Rich. I'm like, well, there's a
Life
mixture
was
of
great
like
playing next
experienced
to
players.
Ruler.
The Hens is on Nongshim with Kingen. Okay, that could be okay. Like Jiu, he was. But the more I think about it, it's like you have all these veterans and these players that haven't really they've been given enough time to shine and haven't. I feel like it's gonna be after the game, like old veterans drinking a bottle of soju, being like, we've been losing for 4 years. Now you're gonna learn how to lose just like us.
Yeah, I think the problem with DNF specifically is that there's just a lot of players on that team that have a big variance in form, and I think
that's what makes that team fun for me. I feel like there's a lot of like there's teams, and DRX and DNF are like exactly the examples of this. Of like, if it comes together, you can see it being awesome.
yes, oh
You
yeah,
know?
I can see how the team
Like
would work.
I have it in my brain like how it's supposed to work. The reason I put BFX at the very bottom was that
you can't see.
I can't see it. I just there's no angle for me in
No,
my
that's
brain.
fair. After Vikla's recent
By the way, is the new
performances.
official tri-code actually BFX or is
Yes.
it BNK?
It's BFX.
And I'm
BFX
really
now.
glad that
No
it
more
is.
Fox.
So we don't need to worry about the Fox thing
Much
again. Yeah.
better.
They figured it out.
Yeah, they did. They made a tri-code
Wow,
that exists.
amazing.
Because in theory, like this is also DNF is a team that's also likely to play really weird stuff between like Jarvan support and then Bulldog with having a champion ocean,
Pioshik
Pioshik existing, Doodoo being the first to ever
It's
pick
also
Garen.
Rapid Star coming back to coaching as well, and so that for me is like really fun.
But as with Nongshim, I think actually Nongshim I could also see be good if Kingen plays the way that he did not last year.
Yeah,
or
if they find that, I think if they
like
get into
spring
like
last year, he was good, right? Like that was when he was
Yeah.
just very stable, no nonsense.
even in summer, like during the season, I think Kingen started to ramp up
but
last
both
year,
Kingen
and
and
then
Lahens,
just fell off a cliff.
Their Worlds
after.
performance was probably some of the roughest performances
Yeah.
of their careers.
Yeah,
So like
so-
that's I think what makes that, because Sylvie, Fisher, Gio, I think are the parts that you'd want to keep of the Nongshim roster. Like that makes sense to me.
I mean, Fisher, he like plays Neferi on purpose. So cool.
I mean, Fisher, 1 out of 5 games, I'm like, could be a top 3 mid laner. 4 out of
Yeah.
5 games, I'm like, definitely a bottom 2 mid laner in the LCK.
That's what I
How?
feel too.
Yeah.
And I think if he can hone that 1 out of 5 games in most of his games and not just be drafted quirky every game, which he won't because the meta will change, obviously, and it has changed quite a lot since he was playing.
Surely it won't be a 0 versus Corky this year, right?
No, surely not. I think this team could find its footing. And I actually think Gideon could be, depending on if Sylvie underperforms, Gideon has had his moments as well. And because Gideon's on a team now where he has to kind of earn his spot if he's doing well in scrims, and Sylvie is just kind of flatlining because he often does. Maybe Gideon gets a shot. Because I actually think Gideon's ceiling is higher than Sylvie's personally. There could be something here for this Nongshim roster. But it feels like between Nongshim and DNF, I'm worried there's going to be like too much cooking. Earlier I was talking about, I hope the Rise group, they cook a little bit. They try some stuff. I'm like, these ones maybe, just get out the frozen food and just heat it up.
I think you don't need that special apartment. You just a microwave's fine. Actually, let's just
think-
keep it simple.
With BFX and DRX, I don't see it. With DNF and Nongshim, I don't think it'll happen. But you can, like Kingen and Lahens are good, like Lahens especially. Like, he
and
did run.
if you look at their ceilings, like
Yeah.
holy, like it would be amazing.
Well, yeah,
the
I
problem
mean-
is that we've seen the floor.
Yeah, for Kingen, I think that on average his career is a lot. Like Lahens, I think had just a bad Worlds, but outside of that was the best support
Yeah,
for
he was
three
great.
quarters of the year and has been top tier in the LCK for the last 3 years now.
Come on, give Delight some credit.
Yeah.
Delight was
I
like
mean,
better
top
than
tier
a lot of
means
the
that
year.
he was up there.
I thought he said best support, so I was like,
No,
Well, I
he
mean,
said-
like
he said it
Lance,
top.
Lance did win them in MSI.
True.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think actually in spring he was a bit sussy. That's fair. Him and Pace both were not amazing back then. But basically,
nor
what I'm-
Carrier.
sorry.
Nor was Carrier really.
Yeah, no. But suffice it to say, it could work. Will it? I unfortunately don't think so.
Yeah.
So then we have KT and Bro fighting for 5th/6th, right? Like those two most likely.
That's what we're expecting. The bottom 4 are the bottom 4. We'll see what order they're in.
Let's
and
talk
now,
about some drama,
Yeah.
baby.
Wait,
we're not there.
No, I want
We're
to
not
save
ready
that.
yet,
feel that agency.
Yeah, I want to save that for last because that's what everyone is waiting for. I want to talk about DK and Genji first. so that we have, and then we can just end on on the banger.
All right.
Because DK, I think, will be exactly the same team that they were last year.
God, I love this team.
Yeah.
With the
This is my
exception that
favorite team. I don't think they're going to be good. I think Shu is absolutely amazing, though. This
He's a
player
maniac.
is so fun.
He's great.
My God.
He's like
Yeah.
if Ilima actually got promoted to the LCK when he was good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when he was,
And like aiming and barrel in the bot lane just sounds like a sitcom, and I'm so into that. I'm so
wanna see
into
that.
I think
yeah.
that they will be a solid fourth that are going to have absolutely incredible games. And then the next time you're watching and you're like, what?
My God.
What are they doing?
No, I feel like
Yeah.
this is a team that like gets third place the first few weeks, and you're like, wow. And then like right when it's a time we're getting close to the split between
Oh,
Rise
yeah.
and Legend, they drop into the Rise group, and everyone's like, oh, what's happening?
Yeah,
Like,
they're like, we're going to take the Rise way out,
and then a bunch of
baby.
people who are watching and don't like D Plus are like, I always knew they were bad. I knew all along. I didn't believe them.
Oh, God.
Like just like it is every year with D
Yeah.
Plus.
I think the fraud alert is just going to be like a heart monitor the whole
it's
time.
even worse because now they have Barrel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
So,
and then they're going to win worlds. That's
Show
probably
me
what's
you're
gonna happen.
motivated, you know.
I just,
The whole
I
thing.
want.
All the narrative's going to have
He's
to come
burnt out, and you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna love this team, and I already know they're gonna break my heart so many
Oh,
times
yeah.
because this is like my current favorite jungling prospect, and then Showmaker and Shiu finally coming in, which I think is something that we were hoping for.
And if you guys didn't catch Casper Cup, Shu was amazing in the Casper Cup. He was so
and a
so
maniac,
good. And a
like he
maniac.
is.
Yeah.
He's what you want in a young top laner. I think which we saw with like Zeus's debut as well, right? Where like from the beginning it was just going ham. Love that team.
I feel like DK, small side note, DK and Bro, I feel like are the teams that are best at watching challengers and like getting the good players, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're actually utilizing that new talent that we have a great system for here in Korea and not just paying some other random veteran like, oh, please save our team, like please come in.
And
you know,
she was like
King
just
in their
nurtured
lens or
by
Teddy,
DK.
you know?
Well,
Like,
it's
basically the
insane
whole way
because
up.
Thanatos obviously gone to C9, and Thanatos was a really high prospect. And then within like, because of their academy team being as good as it is, within like a year and a half, 2 years, they have a new prospect that's good enough to play in the LCK.
And they have Khan as positional coach as well, I think. Like it's crazy.
It's
and
funny
and
how-
Khan is exactly what this guy needs because Khan was him when he was beginning his career.
But they're
and then
gonna
developed into like one of our
DK
best
is
tank
also,
players
as Wolf
ever.
is saying, I don't think they'd ever drop below fifth, but they are gonna do some.
They might.
No,
I could see them at seventh.
I don't
Like,
think
I really
so.
could. I really could.
I think that the floor is too high with aiming Showmaker Lucid, but I do think that the floor is never too high for Barrel.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's interesting that Brendan mentioned the like, oh, like actually utilizing challengers talent. Everyone always thought Nongshim was because they're like, oh, they're using the whole challengers team. That doesn't make, that's not utilizing well.
No.
Then they also prove they really don't know because they just did
No,
what you
it's
said. You should
utilizing talent.
Top biking in lands, like
Utilizing
They'll save
talent
us,
scouts
right?
is, I think, what he was talking
Yeah.
about.
All right,
Like,
so let's talk about
Genji.
Genji real quick because we're running out of time, and I think this roster is a slight downgrade. I actually don't
really.
I'm not ready to trust Ruler fully, but I'm not worried about him as much as I am about Duro. I think
it's-
Duro
I
is
think it's
good. His
valid,
Braum
yeah.
is insane. But I think this roster is going to take some time. And I've said that about Genji before, where I'm like, oh, it's a new roster. It's got some strong players, but it'll take some time for them to figure it out. And then they didn't need any time. I wonder how Ruler and Duro are going to get along because Ruler has played with some really, really strong support players over the years. He's
Oh
obviously been
no,
a part
but
of the sword.
he's loved it. This is exactly what Ruler needs, and I think that like I'm so glad that you bring this up because this whole bottom lane situation is where all the confusion is coming from, right? It's like why Duro? It doesn't make sense. Ruler needs a blank slate. That's the only player that
so he needs
thrives
not
with.
Lahans.
Yeah. He needs not Lahans. He's like, no, get your opinions out of here. This is my lane. You do what you're told. And like that is precisely the player that Ruler is. And Duro's pretty good at knowing when to pull the trigger. Like this guy has been like a great engaged support. Like so
better
far
execute.
and in the past.
He's
Yeah,
better
yeah.
executed.
Yeah,
It was-
better
it was
execute.
him- it was
I think
him
better
and-
execute is what they need
Sure.
when they've got so much veteran talent on this team.
Yeah, it was him and Raptor that kind of, if you remember, there was like a kind of an upsurge for BNK last split.
Yeah.
That was because Duro came in. I am with Wolf. I think that while the roster in summer, I'm like, this is 100%. And they're always with that top side, they're always going to be contesting for first, right?
Yeah.
But it's compared to last year, I am with you. Duro, to me, is like Delight, but slightly less. Like, I was really hyped about Delight when he came in, even though he wasn't brilliant for what he showed. I think what Duro showed on B&K last year wasn't quite as good, but what he showed in Challengers comparatively was as good as being a top tier support in the LCK. So it's kind of, I'm not really sure where he'll land. But I don't know, with that top side, like, who cares? And also,
Yeah, I think they're gonna be fine, yeah.
Ruler, as good as I think Pays was, Ruler is, in my opinion, still an upgrade just because of how dependable he is as a player, and he's one of the greatest AD carries of all time. So it's like,
Yeah.
So I think
The chefs in a kitchen like conversation could be had, right? Because you've got Keen, Chovy, Ruler now, who all want
Hayes
money.
was the anti-ego. Okay,
Yeah.
like he didn't have any. He
Yeah.
wasn't demanding a lot of resources.
And now it's Duro.
Well,
I
I'm saying
think-
like,
I
well, I
think
mean,
Ruler
Ruler is like.
Is there
was-
enough
I
money?
I would say like, of all the players we have in the LCK, like Ruler is probably top 3 ego, right? In terms of like his personality, like he's a very bold person, right? And I don't know how this is all going to gel together. If he and Duro aren't getting along, and like there's some problems early, this roster could really take some time
Duro
to
is
get
a
off the
very
ground.
charismatic
He's fun.
person and a great interviewer.
I
So
wouldn't
I
say
do wonder.
ego, but like, yeah, I
Yeah.
see what you mean.
Yeah, and he was
So
he
he's
came
very
in,
much
didn't he
the
say like
opposite of
I'm going to be the
Pays.
next carrier? Like
Yeah.
that
He
was,
did.
that was
so
his
maybe
immediate
that's
thing.
not actually good.
Yeah.
I also
know.
think we'll have to see. I do think that the years in the LPL and the 2023 loss to T1, I think has kind of, from what I've seen at least, Ruler has kind of chilled a little bit in terms of.
Yeah, I think that it was last year especially would have been a
Yeah.
bit of a come down for
No, of
good old
course.
Ruler.
And compared to where he was in 2022, right, when he was able to finally win, I think this team will, again, like,
They're gonna be good, yeah.
Anything below third would be a complete shock.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get into the drama.
Yeah.
For the first time ever in like LCK history, T1 didn't get what they wanted
Yeah.
in terms of the offseason. It is like the first time this has ever happened. And unless I'm misremembering or something is deleted from my brain, it's the first time ever T1 got outdone by another org. Another org had a better offer. They couldn't get Zeus. They just couldn't get him. And like there's been a lot of drama. There's been a lot of discussion about this. Like,
Yeah, you
like
guys
the
can-
agents messed up.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
Zeus wanted to be on T1,
He would have
and
been.
a T1 wanted to get him, they could have made it happen. He either didn't want to join T1, or T1 just couldn't afford him because of the luxury tax, the salary cap, the
Yep.
financial regulations or whatever it's officially called.
And we're
Salary
not
cap.
we're gonna try not to speculate too much. You guys can watch your favorite perspective of content creator and go and take their opinion about what happened. Just go for
And
it.
make
It's
it
totally
your
fine.
own.
Yeah, okay, but
yeah,
Max-
make it your own. There are no facts that
What-
we can truly lay down on the line outside of the fact that Zeus is on HLE now.
Atlas, but what if we're their favorite content creator?
Then,
Well, that's why they're watching
Then
PogState.
I would
Yeah.
recommend you watch. Omitted.
But like this,
no,
is,
I'm
this
with-
is
I'm with
insane.
you.
This is insane, and I think it's a huge change for how T1 is going to have to play as a team.
Oh, yeah.
Because Zeus was you can blind him anything, or you can counterpick him in a meta where that actually works. And they played around that in draft so much, so that Guma Keria could either push aggressively, have all those resources. A Faker can roam down, they set up those dives, and they put Zeus on that counterpick where he's safe on the top side, or vice versa, try to play around Zeus on the top side. He's one of the best strong side players in the league, if not the best over the last few years. It's been pretty obvious. He's been one of the most consistent top laners. Doran is like the opposite of that. He's so good into Zeus because he's so good at being that weak side into an aggressive player, but he himself, when he tries to be aggressive, it's very hit or miss. I think having that lack of consistency is really going to hurt how this T1 roster plays overall, because it's just they've been together so long, right? And they've
Yeah.
had this very predictable but still very difficult to defeat playstyle for a really long time. Doran completely changes that, and I don't know how it's going to work.
For me, I'm most worried for them at Worlds because T1 were always, a little bit hit or miss, especially last year.
Two summers
terms-
in a row.
Yeah, for summers and for regular seasons. And then when it comes to Worlds time, all 5 players, they click on and Zeus picks up, Worlds MVP and stuff like that. Doran can't be that guy. He's been the exact opposite of that guy. He's been
He's
the
going to help them with their
antithesis
stability
of
in
Doran.
like the end of the
Yeah,
season.
He's going to be
But what are
great
you
at
talking
Zeus
about?
in lane when they play against Hanwha Life
Yeah.
Esports.
What does that mean for T1 now? It's like they're going to be okay, a bit better here in the summer season, but maybe they don't win Worlds now. I don't know if they can do it with Doran. I'm actually really concerned for them because they've always been able to turn it on, but I don't think Doran knows how to. He doesn't have that switch. in
There's
his
a big
brain.
difference. There's a big difference for me, and I think a lot of there are a lot of our teams that have the right mix of players that can help a winning game be won, and there are players that turn games into a winning game. And I think that Genji bringing in Ruler is an example of having another player that can make a winning game.
Or where you're losing, turn it around.
I think Pays was a role player. I think that when you're winning, Pays is a phenomenal player to have on your team because he's really good at, like, he screws that screw in. Like, he's really, really good at that. Ruler makes moments that win you games. Zeus also makes moments that win you games. Doran makes moments that lose you games.
Yeah.
Or he facilitates a beautiful team fight. And we've had so many of these moments, right, where, like, they're both Gragas players. It's kind of interesting to talk about. Like, I feel like Zeus is the kind of guy that will kill you in a side lane as Gragas, and Doran is the kind of guy that will just obliterate a team fight for you on Gragas.
Or he'll like sit on Gragas and like kill 2 people on a dive.
Yeah.
You know?
Like absorbing pressure, but he's not the one that will, like, I'm just going, oh, so we're losing this game? Oh, I guess I'll just Yone ult the backline and we're just going to win. Like, Zeus is that guy. And I think that T1 relied on having that guy that was able to turn around these game states from the top side. Otherwise, they don't have as much oomph in creating these moments. And you can't have just one. You can't have just Faker that's there to try and turn a game around.
You have to have a permaban of Yone against Humble Life Esports now because you have Zeka and Zeus on the same team.
They can the fact that they can flex it is absurd.
Yeah, what you were saying about players that can make games won, I feel like Humble Life is filled with 5 players that can do that now.
Yeah,
right? Because they have Zeus, Peanut. He always does that. Zeka has done that many a time. Zeka a little bit more of like maybe he has that one moment in the team fight that you were talking about, but Viper and Delight as well, like big engages or huge team fights from Viper. I feel like Humble Life Esports are #1 team now in the LCK.
Should be.
I think it's not even close.
I think they're the best team.
Because they kept the defending championship team with one huge upgrade. And they upgraded their weakest part like massively and got one of the strongest parts of one of their biggest oppositions.
Think about Zeus and Peanut together. Like, how do you live in that top side? How do you live?
I've been a super big fan of Zeus ever since they debuted, which I found out last Worlds. It's actually the same day I debuted, which is really cute.
Aww.
That's amazing.
So, right? I thought it was fun.
I meant to for real.
Yeah. No, but I think it's from his perspective as well. The only way that he ever, because he has been in contention, it's basically been him and Bin for best top laner in the world for the last, 4 years? Since, say, 2021, 2022, right? Bin started a little bit earlier. Zeus obviously wasn't the starter until 2022. But it's been the two of them fighting for it. First couple of years, it was more Bin favored. I think recently, Bin, didn't have as good a world as he did domestically. So more recently, it's been Zeus favored. But the fact that fight has been going on. The only way for Zeus to truly prove that you are the best player is by leaving T1. Because as we can see from how Owner is rated, which I think we're finally coming around a little bit on, you will never be rated as a truly best player in the world until you do it without Faker. So, like, from that perspective as well, I think it makes sense for a player to want to...
He's also been, he's been having this conversation quite a few times, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's often said that, I just want to be on the best team. He was never the one that was like, I want to keep the brothers together.
That's Guma.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Guma was
Ruler
always
when he
that
left
guy.
Genji, where it's like, I want to do this on my own now, I want to try something else.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, he came back ultimately, and who knows, maybe Zeus rejoins T1
Zeus
at some
is
point in
also
the future.
joining an insane roster, too. So even if he gets it done with this team, I'm like...
Yeah. To me, it sounds...
I don't know if that really proves...
The situation is almost a mirror of... almost identical, to Ruler going to JDG. Like, trying to make that team that is definitely going to win.
I feel like this roster almost rivals, to me, the Keen Canyon Chovy Pays Lehen's roster in terms of, best roster ever, in the LCK
I think,
recent time.
I think so,
this
too.
might actually even be a stronger roster because Pays was still somewhat unproven. He had won titles and stuff.
And Lehen's
but,
has
he was
always
super
been
young,
a little
and
bit
Lehen's-
you don't know.
Zeka, I feel like, has proven himself to not be the random chance guy now.
No.
I feel like he's consistent now. I feel like we can
Very
trust Zeka
reliable.
now.
Yeah.
But
Extremely reliable.
But that's the thing, right? Looking at this roster, I think mid is the only place where you can make an argument that you could theoretically slot in.
Zeka.
Well, that's my point. That you could argue that having Chovy for most of the year and then Faker for that's the even those are arguable, right? Because I agree with you. I think Zeka has been absolute top tier player. I think his Worlds was actually not as good as I'd hoped. But the fact that is your worst player with how he's been playing recently, that's
GG.
Yeah,
insane.
GG.
Because
Now
like
you
Peanut
compare it-
Canyon feels like it's kind of a
Yeah.
side grade situation,
I
right?
think we're out of time.
Yeah.
There's so much more we could talk about. We got a whole season of LCK and LCK Cup.
Yep, and we've got not very much time, but what we want to do is present to you our New Year's resolutions. So we're not going to do that at all. We're just going to cut that out.
No resolutions.
Can we do it in one word, one sentence, one very quick sentence, quick fire around the table?
Right.
Okay.
got
Learning
nothing.
Korean. Have a 1-year-old.
Cast the LCK.
Challengers, baby.
Hell yeah! All right. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next couple of weeks for another episode of the PogState. Stick around because that's going to be the one where we make outrageous predictions and all say that Home Life Esports is going to be first. We'll see you then.